Let's go through the solution of SAS Practical 2 for HDAT9400. So we had quite a few questions, 8 questions in total. So I'll go through each of them one by one, just in case you're wondering how particular sections work. So we always start the code with a block section, just outlining what the purpose of the code is, who wrote it, the date, and in my instance I'd like to put in which is the input data sets we used, as well as if we created any outputs and what the names are. So let's go through questions one by one. So in question 1 we needed to create a new data set, and I've said we need to create it and call it exercise 1 and use the already existing dataset called HDAT in the SAS help library. So if I run that code, you'll see that exercise 1 dataset is appearing in the work folder, in the work library, just like that. And then I had questions about what variables contain the gender values, and is it character, numeric, and what are the 2 values of the gender itself. So in order to do that, I first need to have a quick look at the contents of the actual data set we just created. So look at its data dictionary basically. So let's submit that code first up, and then you'll notice that we have 5,209 observations, and our variable names are listed in this column, their type in the 3rd column, and with their labels there. So to answer the question of what variable contains the gender values, it's sex, and it's a character format of length 6. And what about the vital status? Well, that variable is called status, and it's also a character variable of length 5. So 2 variables that I'm interested in are sex and status. So in terms of then what lies behind that, those particular variables in themselves, I'm using a Prac to actually look at the number of males and females and dead or alive status in the data set itself. You could have maybe got around by using a Prac print just to examine or eyeball the actual data set itself. However, just bear in mind you would not be able to see maybe all the values that are present there. So in that instance, I'm actually using a Prac to just look at the exact numbers and percentages for those 2 variables. So let's have a look. So sex, as I said, is character. Its values are female and male. And status is also a character variable with values of alive and dead. For question 2, we needed to subset observations based on one condition. And in this instance, I've said create a data set only for those people that are still alive and use a where statement. And then in the other part, in part B, I've said only keep particular variables of interest, and then examine how many values you have in the new data set. So I'm creating a new data set called exercise 2, and I'm only keeping variables that I'm interested in, and I'm using the already existing data set called exercise 1, which we created in the above exercise, and I'm only interested for people that are alive. So where status is alive, create a new data set called exercise 2. So check the log, make sure that it's worked. We have 3,218 observations and 6 variables that we are interested in, and our exercise 2 data set appears there, and it only contains information for those people that are alive. So let's have a quick look at the contents and make sure everything's working. So as I said, 3,218 observations and 6 variables that we are interested in. In question 3, we needed to create 4 new variables, weight in kilograms, height and BMI, 3 new variables, and then label them just so we know what we have done in the future. So I'm using exercise 2 from the previous question to create a new data set called exercise 3. So I didn't want to overwrite exercise 2, but I could have if I wanted to. Just in case I mucked it up, I didn't want to muck it up. So create a new exercise 3, I'm going to run that, and I have a new data set called exercise 3 with 3 new variables at the end with labels weight, height, and body mass index. Now I can run the Prac contents to make sure everything's written out in my data dictionary. And there we go, our 3 new variables are right at the end. And then I've just said make sure that your output looks like the one I've specified in the Prac, but only print the first 10 observations. So I'm using the Prac print to actually look at particular variables in my table that I wanted to have a look at. Submit, and I get output as shown in our Prac solutions. All right, so question 4, we needed to use the if, then, and else statement to categorize our age variable into 4 distinct groups. And the code for that is if, then, and else. So I'm saying if age is under 35, just bearing in mind if we have any missing, that the missing is actually treated as a valid largest negative number. So I didn't want to include any missings in this category under 35. So any valid values under 35, I'm going to call them age cat. Our new variable age cat, a cat is 1. It's called under 35. And then if it's between 35 or under 40, then it's in age cat 2. And if it's 40 or above to 45, then you get the point. So let's run that, and then let's have a look at what comes up. So we have frequencies as I've laid out in question 4 part B, and we can examine the data set and make sure that makes sense. So let's have a look. There's the age cat variable 45 if they're 45 and over, so in this instance age is 57, so it's categorized it to 4, and so on. So that has worked. So that's good. Okay, question 5, we needed to sort the data, and in this instance I've said please sort the data set and call it sort sex, and sort it by sex. So here I'm actually missing a run. So Prac sort the data set I used. So I've used exercise 4 from above. It will be sorted in a new data set called sort sex, and it'll be sorted by sex. So I'm going to run that, make sure. There we go, it's appearing right there. And now females should appear first and then males second. Right, back to our question 5. So we just needed to verify that our first 10 observations look like what I've stipulated in the question itself. So we run that and the output is as expected. And we've seen that it looks the same just by viewing the data as well. So Prac sort has worked okay. So for question 6, I've asked you to produce an output, and I've said you need to use a Prac freak to create some summary information about the numbers of patients. So I'm looking at a tabular format of age and sex to see how many males and females are under certain ages. So that's the output right there, and the answer to question 1, part A, it says the cohort then consists of 3,218 individuals, and we have 1,016 or 31% which are aged 45 and over, and then 1,977 or 61% of them are female. And then I'm saying that female participants are older than male participants, where we have 34% of our female participants and 26% of our male participants aged 45 plus. And then in part B, I said use a proc freq and a by statement to produce the information about the smoking status by gender. So I would like a separate table for males and a separate table for females, and to do that I'm using a by statement, and I'm interested in smoking status variable. So, and then I said please use the title, and the title is enclosed in quotation marks, and a footnote saying which data you have used. So I'm saying use the sorted data set, process it by male and female, so give me two separate tables, and give me the frequencies for the smoking status variable. So let's run that. And as you've seen, now we have a new title at the top. I've called it question 6, smoking status by gender, and a footnote where I've said to SAS print out data used as a sort by sex, and then my smoking status frequencies for females are in the first table, and then the smoking status frequency for males are in the second table. And the last bit of our practical is to save our code, to save some output. So I said use the ODS PDF to save the last part of the last exercise from here, and save it as a PDF file somewhere on your local computer. So I'm using the ODS PDF function and saying to SAS, please save this output called Prac 2 question 7 as a PDF file in my local C drive and a particular location. So in this instance, in my case, it's HDAT9400 week 2. And I can run that now and see if my output appears on my C drive. So fingers crossed. Just going to wait for SAS to finish processing. See this hourglass bar, it's just telling me it's still going ahead, thinking what it's doing. It's producing my frequencies, and hopefully it'll spit out a PDF file soon so we can check that it's actually saved it. There we go, it said it's been output to the location. So let me just check under my C drive, HDAT9400 week 2, and I have my output saved as a PDF. And then lastly, the thing that's left for us to do is to finally then save our SAS program, and we have seen this how to do this in a separate video. So I would just go to File and Save As, and just call it Prac 2 Solutions and click Save. It already exists, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And there you go. That's the solution to Chapter 2 SAS session. I hope you find this useful.